Here's the list of the movies I watched in the month of January. I shall talk about them individually, starting now. The first movie I watched was The Sand. It was much better than I expected. The people who died in gruesome fashion, and the people that lived, I didn't expect to live. Well, one of them at least. I did expect to live. The second movie I watched was Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Oh boy. Probably the worst Star Wars movie ever. The only redeeming thing I can think of is Darth Maul and his double-sided lightsaber. That thing was badass. The third movie I watched was Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This was almost as bad as the first one. A lot of problems and just terrible dialogue. The fourth one I watched was Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It's the best of the prequels, but it's still a shitty movie, but it has some redeeming qualities. And it is much darker than any other Star Wars movie, I believe, in my opinion. The fifth movie I watched was Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, aka Star Wars. This is a very well done movie. It works on so many levels that I overlooked some of the problems that it had. There weren't many, but what there was weren't even noticeable, like I said, because it is such a well-made movie. The sixth movie I watched was Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Easily my favorite Star Wars movie, and it's a lot of other people's favorites as well. The seventh movie I watched was Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. I said that's really cool, the Jedi. Anyways, this was an awesome movie. It ended the trilogy and tied up all the loose ends. The eighth movie I watched was Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Probably my second favorite Star Wars movie. It was so awesome to see in theaters. The ninth movie I watched was Razor Teeth. Probably the worst piranha movie ever made. Not to be confused with Razor Tooth, this early 2000s schlockfest was so low budget and so poorly acted I almost gave up on it. The 10th movie I watched was Charlie's Farm. This was my 500th review, and I absolutely love this film and hope there's a sequel. The 11th movie I watched was Contamination, a 1980 Italian alien ripoff. It was a total blast to watch, not only for us to watch it, but also when people get infected with this egg yolk or whatever, they explode. Their chests or whatever part was hit explode in a gory geyser of blood. How awesome is that? The 12th movie I watched was Insidious Chapter 3, probably the weakest of the trilogy, but I still enjoyed it. It had great acting and camera work. The 13th movie I watched was The Evil Dead from 1981, my favorite 80s horror movie and also my favorite Evil Dead movie out of the whole entire franchise. The 14th movie I watched was the first movie I did a video with the B-raters on, and that is Driller Killer from 1979. Oh my god, was this movie annoying. The music, the acting is all over the top and just ear-piercing. The 15th movie I watched was Citizen TOXIE, The Toxic Avenger Part 4. Now, this is probably my second favorite Toxic Avenger movie, and it was the last one I had to watch so I could review it for my Scare Show 3. It was just a blast to watch. The 16th movie I watched was Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. One of the best sequels to an 80s classic film. It balanced horror and slapstick comedy so well that it steered the series in that direction for so many years. The 17th movie I watched was Backcountry. What an awesome killer bear movie. There's a scene where a black bear kills somebody, and it is extremely gruesome, I will not lie. The 18th movie I watched was Little Dead Rotting Hood. This was a pretty good asylum movie. It had great acting and solid effects for the most part, and the cinematography was nice too. The 19th movie I watched was Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. This was so much fun. This was probably my favorite zomcom since Zombieland. The 20th movie I watched was Watchers 2. I have seen them all now, and I love them all for their own reasons, but the plot is a bit repetitive as the series goes on, but this is probably my second favorite of the whole entire series. The 21st movie I watched was Watchers 3. It was like a Predator ripoff, but it was still enjoyable. 22nd movie I watched was Killer Movie. This was a big letdown for me. I got it on a double feature with Midnight Movie, and that movie was awesome. This movie was a much lesser movie than Midnight Movie, but it still had its own charm. The 23rd movie I watched was Godzilla from 1954, one of the best monster movies ever made. The score, the acting, the characters, the dialogue, everything. It works so well. The 24th movie I watched was also with the B-Raiders. It is called Cheerleader Camp from 1988. This was pretty shitty. That's all I can really remember is it being really boring and crappy. The 25th movie I watched was Godzilla Raids Again. It was an okay sequel, not as good as the first, nowhere near in fact, but it was still enjoyable. The 26th movie I watched was King Kong vs. Godzilla from 1962. This is a classic. It's so cheesy and so bad that it's good that it actually became a good movie. The 27th movie I watched was Howl. Very good British werewolf movie. The 28th movie I watched was Mothra vs. Godzilla. When I watched it, I loved it so much that I considered it almost as good as the first. The 29th movie I watched was Indigenous, also known as Indigenous Chupacabra. This was a really interesting movie. The last 15 minutes were shocking and very creative and original. The 30th movie I watched was Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. It started the tag team battle between other monsters and I loved it. Number 31 was Invasion of the Astro Monster. Really sci-fi-esque Godzilla movie, but it's still worth a check out. The 32nd movie I watched was Tentacles. Besides it being boring, it's a very well done movie. The 33rd movie I watched was Critters 2, the main course. Fun movie. I almost love it as much as the first. The 34th movie I watched was a short film called Kung Fury. This was awesome. Such a blast to watch. The 35th movie I watched was Zombie from 1979, also known as Zombie, or Zombie Flesh Eaters. Classic Fulci flick. The 36th movie I watched was Octopus. What a fun movie, especially the last 15 minutes. The 37th movie I watched was The Boy. I saw this in theaters, and I loved it. The 38th movie I watched was As Above, So Below. Very creepy movie. It worked on a lot of levels, and it was just a scary movie to me. And that's it. Tune in next time for my list of February movies that I watched. I am Brian Gatto, host of Horror Show Movie Reviews. Make sure to like my Facebook page in the description below and leave comments and subscribe.